Hi there, this is the Common Magician. We're going to try something very unusual here. I've got 3 books here. These are 3 kind of short novels. You can see that they're kind of, I don't know, teenage, young adult sort of reading. These are 3 in a series by an author by the name of Kinsey Warnock. This one is As Long as There Are Mountains, The Night the Bells Rang, and this one is In the Language of Loons. So this is a New England author, writes books about that part of the country. I'm going to use these in a moment. I also need a deck of cards here. I've got a deck of cards, but I actually don't need the deck. I don't need the cards themselves. I need the box. There is a sense in which all of this could be fairly impromptu as well. The books could be borrowed. The cards could be, the box could be borrowed as well. However, I did bring something with me. I've got here some pieces of paper, a little rubber band holding them together. These are 50 pieces of paper, and each one of them has a number on it. So none of these are the same. They are all different. 1 through 50. These could be inspected by the spectators and viewed and looked over. Of course, the box could be inspected as well. What I would do is I would have the spectators mix these up, and they'll do it for us in this case. And then the papers can be placed, all mixed up, by the spectators into the card box, again, which is borrowed in this case. And I would not have control over any of this, so that I would not know the order of anything. So you just kind of have to take my word for it right now. And then that would make us ready to go. What I want to do is fairly simple. I'm going to make a selection here in a moment, but I want to explain why. If I asked you to think of a number, 2 possibilities might occur to you. The first one is that you might think that I influenced you somehow to pick what I wanted. Okay, the other idea is that you might think that in a group of spectators, that if I asked someone to pick a number, the rest might be suspicious that that person was what we call a confederate or a stooge, as you might know it, that they might be in on this. So this is the best way I know to make this such that it seems very fair, that I would not know what I am selecting, and that you would have complete control over the outcome. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to select one piece of paper from inside of here very freely. And I'll take this one right here, and the number that I've selected is 37. You can see that there, the number's 37. And just to give us a little bit more of an option here, I'll select another one, so we have a little bit more to work with, a little bit more choices to make. So let me pick one more here, and I'll pick this one here. Again, it's very free, very random, and it looks like we have 24. So 37, and 24 from the pack that you mixed up. And this is what we have to work with here, just to verify. 37 and 24. Now, I'm going to say, well, first of all, actually, before we use those, I want you to select a book, because I want you to have some free choice in this. So out of these 3 books, you can pick any one that you want. And let's say that you go with this one right here. And this could be a real free selection. You could choose whatever you want to. So we're going to use As Long as There Are Mountains. I'm going to say that at page number 37, which is what I picked from what you mixed up and what you inspected, and I've got a number 24 here. We'll say that, I don't know how we could use this. Well, I've got 2 digits, so I can do it this way. I'll say on line number 2, word number 4. Line number 2 and the 4th word. So page 37, line number 2, 4th word. Okay, and that's what we've got here from this book. So what I would have you do is I would have you turn to that page number 37. I would have you look at line number 2 on page 37, look at word number 4. And as you were doing that, I would consider what the possibilities are. And I believe, I'm sensing here, in this book, in this particular book that you chose freely, that on page 37, line number 2, the 4th word, I think it's 3 letters. I'm getting O-U-T, out. The word is out. Page 37, line number 2, word number 4. Let's see what we find here. So if we turn very quickly to page number 37, There we are, this is indeed page number 37. And we look here at line number 2. Line number 2, word number 1, 2, 3, 4. I don't know if you can see that. So this is a continuation in our series concerning the combination of forces with multiple outs. That is, having several ways that a trick can end to choose from, and using some sort of mechanism, some sort of device to force spectators into one of those few possible endings that you can work with when you get to the end of the presentation. This is, again, a very powerful way to do magic, because it creates a very difficult reverse train of thought for spectators to sort out the method. They may feel that there was something that is forced about it, yet at the same time they can verify that they had free selections in the process, and that sort of puts a bit of a damper on that idea that they were cornered into some sort of conclusion. So this is a book test, the ever-popular mentalism trick that is a book test. I've never done one of these before. I don't typically, do book tests. There's lots and lots of different methods for book tests. But I'm going to use a method. This is actually straight out of Anneman's 202 Methods of Forcing. This is exactly as it is presented in the book, in the pamphlet. Again, that is a public domain piece of literature, magic literature, that you can find, and it literally just has what it says. There's 202 methods of forcing, kind of a short pamphlet-like book, and you'll read one at a time, and they're literally about that big on each page, just a little paragraph that explains a method to force. This is a book test force, and that's how it's presented in the book, and it presents this idea that we're going to go through that can be somewhat impromptu, and let me explain how this is going to be impromptu. You will have to know that you're going to end up at page 37, line number 2, word number 4, on whatever book you get, okay? And it doesn't have to be those numbers. Those are just the numbers that I am set up for. You could set up for really anything that you wanted. You can have borrowed books. You can have a borrowed container to mix up your papers in. The papers you'll want to have pre-made, and you'll probably carry around something like this with a rubber band around them. Now, when I say that this can be impromptu, this does require a little bit of on-the-spot research. You have to, see your books, know where your books are at, look through them briefly. Just go to the page and the line and the word that you're going to force, so that you can memorize what that word is for each book. So I have these books memorized not by their titles, but by the words that I need, and I know that based on what the book is. This one is still, S-T-I-L-L. This one is out, O-U-T, and this book is can't. And I learned that in a matter of about 30 seconds just by looking at each one. And now I have my presentation all set. I know what my outcomes are going to be. And this is my multiple out, that the spectators can choose any book that they want to. Now, the force part of this, the force side of this, has to do with these pieces of paper and the selection from a container. The papers are real. They're one paper per number. There's no repetition in there. They are numbered 1 through 50. However, numbers 24 and 37 are missing from this stack, and I have them put away somewhere, and I'm going to force those two out of this box. You could hold out in some kind of, palmed sort of sleight of hand way, but there's an even better way to do it that Anneman points to in his pamphlet. And the way that he suggests you do it is that you use a thumb tip. So in the pamphlet, he talks about reaching into a container that has been inspected with some slips of paper that have numbers on them, taking out a piece of paper, but actually reaching in with a thumb tip on that has the piece of paper that you want, and merely depositing the thumb tip. And what this does is it allows you to approach the container with seemingly empty hands that are open and empty, and nobody can see that there's anything in there. You can be very clean and very open about this, as I was in the presentation that I showed you. Now, he says in there that you could force one slip of paper, but kind of as a little bit of an addendum to that force, he mentions he doesn't see why you couldn't do it again with another thumb tip and just deposit 2 thumb tips and pull out a couple pieces of paper. And that's exactly what I did here. Now, if you wanted to just use 1 thumb tip, you could try something like this, where you force number, 37, like we did for the page number, and then look at line number 3, word number 7, and just use 1 slip of paper to accomplish it. So that's another way to maybe fulfill this force. I thought it looked a lot stronger if you did multiple thumb tips, took out a couple of different pieces of paper. It just looks a lot more authentic. So let's work our way through this very quickly. I take the box, and this can be borrowed because the box is inconsequential. There is a little bit of cleanup that I didn't put in my presentation, but we'll talk about that briefly here as we go on. That you want to get those thumb tips back out, and I think it's a pretty simple, easy way to do that. And you can even do it in the middle of the presentation, such that people wouldn't, the heat would not be on. Everything's already been done. So you need a box of some sort where you can leave thumb tips in. Now, a thumb tip doesn't really fit inside this box. It kind of makes it bulge out a little bit. So I held on to it for most of the time. And when I set it aside, I set it aside out of view. You might stick it in your pocket or something like that. In which case, if you did that, that would be the time to dump your thumb tips. But it needs to be able to take a thumb tip. Even if it doesn't fit perfectly, I'll have to be able to conceal it. So I have my slips of paper. I go through the presentation that I did. I talk about, the benefit of selecting in this way. And again, as I said on my first tutorial to this series, that you need to have motivation. Motivation really, really matters. And one of the motivations for this is that you could say, if I just asked somebody in a group to think of a number, you might think that I was influencing their choice in some way, that they would come up with the number that I wanted them to. Likewise, if I asked somebody to think of a number, the other people might be suspicious of that person, and you might just assume that that person was just helping me. If we do it this way, neither of those two things can be true. There's no way that I could pick one of these specifically. If you've mixed them up and you've inspected everything, there's no way I could pick precisely one that I can't see. I couldn't influence the decision. Likewise, you couldn't say that somebody's in on it by doing it in this method. There's no way that someone would be able to put these in here in such a way that I would find a particular piece of paper, especially if several people were working together to load these in. So that's my motivation in doing it this way. And it's good to have motivation. It's good to have a reason to do something a little out of the ordinary. So the way the presentation works is they mix them up. They put them into the box. And you might have them shake it around. In this kind of box, shaking around, you see they fall out the bottom. Be careful with whatever container you pick. In this case, shaking them around is a bit silly because they really can't change order in any way. But you might have a larger box or something, a music box that's sitting on a table somewhere in which you could really, have someone shake it up and do it that way. So we have our pieces of paper. Now, in this time, what I've done is I've gone to the coin pocket on my jeans, my pants over here. You would find these, you could hide your thumb tips anywhere. There's a lot of different ways to hide thumb tips. You can hide a thumb tip away inside of a belt, just inside pants. And there are suggestions about using a paper clip. You can paper clip a thumb tip on the inside of a place. You can put it inside of a jacket. You could even hide it loaded somewhere about your person, maybe underneath a seat cushion or something like that, just somewhere where you can get to it. So I use the coin pocket in my jeans over here, and I've got the first one in the front, 37, and I've got the second one, 24, right behind it. So while this is all being done, I just put my hand down at my side, and I pick up the thumb tip. You want to make sure your hands are not dry when you do this, because it's just one piece of paper. A single piece of paper can be very difficult to pull from a thumb tip, so you want to make sure your hands are moist enough and that you're using a plastic thumb tip rather than a vinyl or a rubber one so that it slides out very easily. But I get my thumb tip on, and then I bring my hand out, and I conceal my thumb tip, but I want to make sure it's pointed sort of at the spectators so they can see fairly easily that my hand appears to be empty. Now, there's no heat on me anyway, but they can, observe that my hand is empty, particularly as I approach the box. Now, you want to avoid doing common thumb tip things like this, this kind of stuff. Just casually show that it's empty as you reach in. And I recommend using your thumb and your first finger rather than your second finger. This is a very magician-like move, particularly with thumb tips, right, to do this. And even I do this all the time. But, this would be more natural. Someone would reach in like this to pull something out. So come at the box, reach in. And you want to make sure always this is pointed away. And you want to also handle the box such that it doesn't look like you're peeking anything, right? I have the flap on top, or I have it, kind of off to the side. However, so it looks like you really aren't looking. You might even look away, turn your head as you're taking this out. But all you're going to do is you're going to put your hand in, you're going to leave the thumb tip behind, and you're going to take the piece of paper out. And there you have forced the number 37. Now, one thing you want to do is that a thumb tip will put a little bit of a curve onto this. So as you take it out, you can hold it such that it looks like you're holding it kind of rough, kind of tightly. And that would naturally put those, wrinkles into it. And then flatten it out as soon as you get it out, okay? So you take that out, 37. I'm still holding on to my box here. As I'm talking about 37, and I have a spectator pick a book, I would have someone pick a book at this time where they get free selection. They would pick, whatever book they want to. This is the one we did. I know this book is out, still out and can't. This one's out, so I know that the force word is going to be out on this one, and I'm already set. The trick is really done at this point. Then I'm going to pick another piece of paper. I've already loaded on the second thumb tip, so I reach into the box one more time, and I deposit my thumb tip, and I take out another piece of paper, and I demonstrate that the paper says 24. And then I explain that they can go to page 37. We'll go to line number 2, word number 4, and I'll have them take a look at that. Now, the rest of this is just presentation. You can pretend like you're reading their mind. You can pretend to know, through some sort of, spiritual, method to know what it is. You could say that you memorize these books. That I sat here for the last 5 minutes and I actually memorized these books, whatever. You want to be careful on whatever claim you make, because if you say I memorized the books, ultimately the follow-up is going to be, well, what's on this page, right? So I would recommend that you go with some sort of explanation that is a little bit more precise to what it is you're doing. I'm finding one word on this page. It's the word at line number 2, word number 4, and there's really nothing more to my claim than that, okay? So that's done. Now, clean up. I didn't do this on the video, but if you wanted to clean up, now would be a good time before you do the reveal. They're looking at the word maybe as they're looking through the book. What you can do is you can take your hand and put 2 fingers in to the box, okay, if you have a card box sort of situation, and then you can take out the thumb tips at that point. Just put them on the fingertips, just like this. And as you do that, you can just hold on to the box. You can even keep your hands sitting here for a while with these thumb tips on the fingers. Because they're flesh toned, even if they stick out the front a little bit. Now, because you know they're there, this looks really, really strange. But believe it or not, no one will notice that. No one will realize that your fingers are 3 times the size they should be. But you can actually hold the thumb tips behind the object here for a while until an opportune time where you can get rid of them. Now, to ditch them, you might take your hand and just curl it back like this as you bring your hand down and place it in your pocket and then set down the box. So you can fairly easily ditch those thumb tips once you've already had all of the information out in the open. The papers have been selected. The book is being looked through. You can do some cleanup there at that point. And then here it's just a matter of having them open the book to page number 37, line number 2, number 4, presentation, play it up, and get your applause at the end. So there is a book test using a force accompanied with a various out, 3 outs, multiple outs going on here in the form of a book test. Very old idea that I've never really seen anybody do, so I'm bringing it up here to you to consider for your own use. So good luck with that, and I wish you happy magicking.